Hello, I hope you're doing fantastic. In this video, we are going to get familiar with the Arduino Integrated Development Environment, or IDE for short. Now, I know, and we've already talked about this, that sounds crazy, confusing, but really, it works just like a text editor program. Now, I'm only going to cover the stuff in the IDE that I think is important for us to know right now. Specifically, what we'll be covering in this lesson is selecting the correct Arduino board and serial port from the Tools menu. We'll talk about saving an Arduino file called a sketch. We'll talk about the editor, the message bar, and the console. We'll talk about some other miscellaneous items that are good to know about the Arduino IDE. And finally, we'll learn how to scratch an itch that's almost nearly impossible to reach on your back. So let's go ahead and open up the Arduino Integrated Development Environment. Here's the Arduino icon. And again, this is just the Arduino program. So when you click that icon, this opens up the IDE. Now the first thing we're going to talk about is selecting the correct board and serial port for your Arduino. So basically what we're going to do is let the Integrated Development Environment know what Arduino board you're using. So you come up to Tools, and you'll come down to where it has board. Now you'll notice I've got Arduino UNO selected, and that's because I use an Arduino UNO throughout the course. And I recommend you also use an UNO or UNO clone or derivative throughout the course. It'll help kind of keep it standard. So once you've selected your board, the next thing you need to do is select your serial port. Now this can get a little confusing and somewhat frustrating, but it doesn't have to be. So a serial port, this is just showing the different things that are connected to your computer, the different serial ports that are coming into your computer. The easy way to find out which of the multiple listed ports is your Arduino is to first have your Arduino unplugged from the computer. You go to this list and you just write down on a piece of paper, you write down the names of these ports, maybe just the last couple words in the port so you can differentiate one from the next. And then you close the Arduino IDE. Then what you do is you plug your Arduino board in via the USB cable to your computer, and you open up the Arduino IDE again. Now you should see an additional serial port. So whatever that additional serial port is, that's going to be the serial port that your Arduino is connected to. Now for Mac, you're usually going to see a CU after the dev slash or a TTY. Those are the common ways that Arduino will show up on the serial port for Mac. For PC, it shows up as a COM port, and it's just hard to say which it will be. You know, it could be 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, so on and so forth. So again, the best method really is just to do the unplug and replug the Arduino in to find that port. Okay, so once you've done that, you've really got the first part set. And every time you reopen the Arduino IDE, that will stay the same. So if you do happen to get a different board that you want to upload some code to, you have to remember that. You have to go in and you're going to have to change the board. And it's pretty much that easy. Now, when you open up the Arduino IDE for the first time, what it's going to do is open up a file, and it's just going to give it this default name, and it will be sketch underscore, and then it's going to give you the current date. And you'll notice that that name is also at the top here, at the top of the IDE, along with the version of Arduino that you're using. Now, to save this, you just go up to File, Save, and it's, just like saving any other file. And notice where it's asking you to save. It's in Documents, Arduino. So again, this is the sketchbook. This is our sketchbook folder where all of the sketches that we write are going to be saved. And you can nest your files in here, just like you could any other program where you're saving files. It's really no different. Now, when you're naming a file, you can't use any spaces between the words. One common method is using an underscore if you would prefer to have a space, and you can't use special characters. Now you can use numbers in the name, but you can't have a number as the first character when you're saving. So I'll go ahead and save that. And now you'll notice in the tab here, the name changed, so it's urock123, and it also changes up here. So saving's pretty easy, and the shortcut key for saving is Control S, and also there's this down arrow here. You can click that button, and that will also save. So the next thing we're going to talk about are the three main areas of the integrated development environment, and that's the editor, the message area or message bar, and the console. So the editor is this big white space, And this is where the Arduino code actually gets typed in. So you'll notice it's got line numbers along the side. Right now it's 1 through 9, and if we put our cursor in here, you see we add some numbers and we see that. And if you recall, that was one of the preferences we set in one of the previous videos, was that we wanted to display line numbers. Now, I also want to point out one thing in this name here. So you see this little funky looking S there? Every time you make a change to the sketch that has not been saved, that S shows up. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit save, and you'll notice it went away. Now if I type something here, you'll notice that that little funky S came back. So that's just a visual indicator to let you know, hey, you've made some changes, you really ought to save. And I personally am a save fanatic. Just about every single line of code, I'll use the shortcut key Control S to save, just to make sure that I don't lose anything should I have an issue with either the Arduino IDE or my computer or whatever. Now, when you open up a new program in Arduino, it auto-populates two of the mandatory functions when you're writing code in Arduino. And we'll talk about these in depth later, but it's perfectly normal for these to show up, and it just kind of helps you out. So right on top of this editor area are two very important buttons. The first one is this little check mark, and this is the verify button. So when you click this, what happens is the code gets compiled. Compiling, like we've talked about before, it's basically what's happening is it's taking the code that we've written, this human readable code, and it's translating it into machine code, essentially. And what it's going to do for us, how it really helps us, it's going to point out any errors that it might find in the code. It's also going to do some optimization stuff way behind the scenes we don't have to worry about. So you constantly want to check for errors, your code for errors. So I like to verify my code almost every line of code I write. The more you verify, the more quickly you can identify where you might have introduced an error into the code, or a bug. And we'll be using this verify button all the time. You'll get comfortable with using it and understanding when to use it. The shortcut key for the verify button is Command R or Control R, and you can also get that in the sketch menu there, verify/compile, Command R or Control R. Now the next button over here is the upload button, and what this does is it takes all the code that we've written and it actually uploads it to the Arduino board. Now when you click that button and you look at your Arduino, and this is again assuming that your Arduino is hooked up to your computer via the USB cable, you'll see two lights blinking rapidly, and it's the TX and RX buttons. And that's a really good visual indicator that you've got a good connection with the Arduino and the computer. The IDE is recognizing that you've got your Arduino hooked up, so you know that the code is actually getting uploaded to the Arduino board. The shortcut key for the upload button is Control U or Command U, and again that's also available in this drop down here for upload. Now below the editor space is a blue bar, and this blue bar is the message area or message bar, and it will give you some information in here about what you've done recently in the program. So for example, I was done uploading. If I press Control S, you'll see it says I'm done saving, and we'll give other pertinent messages in there. Now the black space below the message area or the message bar is called the console. Now you won't hear it referred to that way too much. People will just say like the error place or whatever. If you want to increase the space down there, there's a bar here, you can drag it up. You can see more of it. And what this space does is this is where error messages will get displayed. It will tell you information about the current operation that you did. So what I'm going to do real quick is just introduce an error into the code, and I will verify just so we can get an idea of what this looks like. So here we can see in the message bar, we have a quick note about the error. It says U is not declared in the scope. Again, don't worry about understanding any of this. I just want to give you an idea where stuff shows up. And then down here in the console is where the actual more detailed information about the error came up. It tells you, what file it was in, what function it was in, and then it tells you the line of code. So it's saying it was on line 3. We look up line 3 in the editor, it gets highlighted, and so that's where we can start looking to see where the error might have been. Now, unfortunately, you're not always going to get the correct line of code. The errors won't always highlight the correct line of code. You have to do a little searching around, but that's beyond the scope of our discussion right now. So that's pretty much the three big pieces of the Arduino IDE. Again, you've got the editor, the message bar or message area, and the console. Now, some final miscellaneous things we'll talk about is at the very bottom of the IDE. You see a number here, this number 3, and that's just referring to what line of code your cursor's at. So if I cursor down a little bit, you'll see the number changes. And that's just a handy way to find out, where your cursor is, especially if you decide not to show line numbers on the side. That will be helpful. In the far right corner, you'll see they've got the name of the Arduino board that you've got hooked up or identified in the Tools menu, and also which serial port that you've identified. In the top right, there is a little magnifying glass, and this is a serial monitor. And if you click it, it opens up this window, and this will allow us to see communication that happens between the Arduino and the computer and vice versa. We'll talk in depth about the serial monitor and serial communications, but it's just kind of handy to know that there's a little button up there, and if the shortcut key for the serial monitor is Shift Control M, that will also open it up, or Shift Command M, depending what operating system you're using. And for now, that's all we really need to do to get started using the Arduino IDE. You can see it's not too much going on here. It's a pretty simple integrated development environment, and it's kept streamlined that way because, again, Arduino has really been designed for ease of use. There's not a bunch of bells and whistles that can a lot of times just get in your way. All right, well, hey, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.